From LateNighter.com, it's Inside Late Night with Mark Malkoff.
Hey everybody, John Schneider coming to you from LateNighter today to set up our conversation that Mark Malkoff is about to have with Chris Kattan, the former SNL cast member who was at the show from 1996 to 2003. Chris joins Mark to talk about his career at the show, some of his biggest moments and sketches, and then I join the conversation towards the end. So I hope you enjoy our talk with Chris Kattan.
Chris Kattan, nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you, Mark.
So March 16th, 1996, I was actually there for Dressin' Live. It was your very first show. It was John Goodman.
Oh, wow.
Everclear. Now, the sketch that you're in, it's very rare that the person, their very first show, gets their own sketch, and it absolutely kills when you're the substitute teacher. And I wanted to revisit the Wednesday when you were at read-through, because you annihilated dress rehearsal, and of course it makes it to the live show, and you annihilate again. But it read-through, were you exaggerating when you say that it played to silence?
Yeah, didn't get very big laughs, but that's okay because, I was new and it was my first week and I was hired like 6 weeks into the end of the season. So it was an odd spot to be hired. It wasn't mid-season. It wasn't beginning of the season. It was 6 weeks before. So it was an odd spot. So not a lot of people knew me. I knew Will Ferrell and Sherry O'Terry and Molly Shannon, with the people that I knew, but everyone else were new to me.
So when you went into dress rehearsal, did you feel good about the sketch, even though it didn't do well at the table?
Well, it made the cut, so I knew that they liked it, so they're willing to give it a chance. So I knew that, and then when it went live or went for dress rehearsal, the audience went crazy, so they really enjoyed it. So that's when I knew that that it was popular and that I may have found a home. So
I remember a Conan writer come in. I was in the green room coming in and pointing at the monitor when you were doing it at air and being like, "Who is that?" Just
yeah,
because the audience was so over the top. Now, a little bit later, Phil Hartman hosted, and you wrote the acting class sketch for. You came up with the idea, correct, for that?
yeah,
Sketch?
I wrote that sketch. Yeah,
Now, my recollection, and once again, I'm a big Saturday Night Live nerd, and I was there for dress rehearsal. My memory is it was like the last sketch of the night at dress, or it was close to the last. And normally, the
maybe.
last sketch at dress rehearsal normally does not do great and gets cut, but
Right.
it did really really well. I remember, and
Yeah,
for the broadcast, did you do that at the Groundlings, or did you write it that week?
I did write it at the Groundlings. I wrote that at the Groundlings for myself. I was the teacher in the Groundlings, and in this situation, I gave that role to Phil Hartman for because he was hosting. Because Steve Higgins, the head writer at the time, he thought it'd be a good idea to give him the role, so I can get a sketch in that week.
So yeah, it was like this is something. This is yeah, that was so funny with that name dropping Gordon Jump, and then Jack Handy wrote the Johnny piece, right? That was in black and white, where you're is it like a police officer or he's
Oh,
the
I don't know if he did write that or not. Maybe he did. Yeah, there was a scene where it was black and white and with Phil
yeah
Hartman, and I was holding up a diner, and he was the cop.
yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I thought it was Jack Handy. He usually wrote when there was a character named Johnny. A lot of times
Oh,
it was him, but the John Goodman show is such a good one to debut because they did the Real World with Bob Dole, and they didn't normally
yeah,
do tape pieces and the audience was just absolutely on fire. So
yeah.
you have such a unique story because the only people I know that came into SNL that had never been to New York are you and Mike Myers. So the summer of '95, you fly from LA to New York. What were your impressions when you get there, and do you go right to Rockefeller Center and audition? What I mean, talk about
No,
fish out
no,
of water.
I had auditioned before with Will and Sherry, and Jennifer Coolidge was the other groundling that auditioned as well. And I was just staying at the Paramount Hotel, and they put me up. And the first time I ever been in New York was the first week that I started SNL. So I never even been into New York yet.
Unbelievable. And your audition, you did. I was reading an interview. You did Christian Slater interviewing a vampire
Yeah,
from Interview with a Vampire, and then I know you did Peepers with a boombox. and then the coffee guy you put online recently.
Yeah, that those were my audition pieces.
Did you feel good about the audition?
Yeah, I felt pretty good. I mean, it was hard to tell because they're not supposed to laugh usually.
Mhm.
Usually they're not supposed to laugh at you. And there's only three people watching you because it's via satellite in Burbank where they have the NBC studios there. And there's a lot of executives watching online. So they were told to be quiet. So you're so used to an audience, at the Growlings.
Did you know that you were possibly gonna be brought in mid-season?
No, I didn't. I didn't know. I thought I just didn't get the part. I thought I just wasn't going to make it. So I went back to the Groundlings. So yeah, that's what happened. But then I was all of a sudden Will called and said Lauren asked me to ask you if you wanted to join the Groundlings, and I said yeah, heck yeah, I'd love to. So it was not a lot of time to have any anxiety or any excitement. I just went right in the middle of it, and just got lucky and got my sketch in the show, and then luckily the audience loved it. So I just aimed to get a sketch in every show, and it worked out for me.
Yeah, you did an amazing that season, and then at what point I guess on Monday when you arrived, you find out on 17 that you're gonna be with David Spade in an office. Is that when I'm
Yeah,
guessing when you found out was he helpful to talk you through everything that you were going through, or was he just kind of, focused on what he was doing with Hugh Fink?
he was pretty focused on his Hollywood Minute excerpt that he did on Weekend Update. So he didn't really. He was very kind. He was a cool guy, but he didn't really help me. He wasn't doing sketches, so he was just doing the Hollywood Minute. But we did share an office with him and Hugh Fink, and who was his writer for the Hollywood Minute. So that's where they
Yeah.
put me. And then the next season, I got my own office.
Oh, that's great that you got your own office. Yeah, Spade
Yeah,
was gone by then. I wanted to talk about because you mentioned this in your fabulous book. There's a sketch the next season with Bill Pullman hosted, and it's the AT&T operators, and it's you and Will, and
yeah.
it's the first sketch after the monologue. And you said it was one of the first times that you did a sketch and it played to silence. So I wanted to ask you, at dress rehearsal, it must have killed because they had it right after the monologue. What do you think happened? And did it kill at dress?
I think it did. I think it did well, but they trusted that it would do better, but it didn't do as well as we thought it would. But it still did well. That was a sketch that Will Ferrell and I also did at the Groundlings together, and that was we were AT&T operators, so we just like, hi, this is AT&T operators. This way to calling, and we both sounded the same, and it was it did well. It just didn't do as good as we thought it would do.
Yeah, talking about the Danishes. Did Robert Smigel come to you with the idea for Carrie Strug at Update with you playing Kippy, which is another that was I think the season premiere with it might have been Tom Hanks.
Yeah, it was Tom Hanks. It
Yeah.
was the season premiere. I also did Mr. Peepers that same episode with Tom Hanks, who brought to life that character. He's the one that shows it because I tried to get it on there before and it wasn't chosen. But Carrie Strug was in the news and she was very big and she broke her leg and she won the gold and it was a big deal in the Olympics. And I found out I could do her voice. I could talk like Carrie Strug. And so I just ran into Robert Smigel, who was submitting a sketch. He wasn't part of the everyday life at SNL. But he I came to him. I just said I'm having trouble thinking of a catch. Some sort of a we could probably get Carrie Strug to fly out and be in the sketch, but I don't know what to do as opposed to just be Carrie Strug with Carrie Strug. And he said, well, what if you're her brother Kippy Strug? So that gave me the idea to do Kippy Strug. And I would be a character that supported Kippy Strug or Carrie Strug while I played Kippy Strug and I was in the audience. and that's what was that was the birth of it. Basically, Robert Smigel helped me out with that.
I'm always fascinated with some of the writers who worked on what Home Shopping, which it was so funny because I know who it's based on, those two guys with you and
Yeah.
Will. Who wrote those sketches? Was it you and Will, and who else helped out, if you remember?
Sometimes Dennis McNichols. He helped out
Yeah.
if it had anything to do with Star Wars, and the one that we did with Mark Hamill had to do with Star Wars. So um, we did that, and he helped out on that one because he's a Star Wars freak. But essentially, it was just Will and I writing together.
They were so much fun, those sketches, and then Mark Hamill at the time. The other I wanted to ask was the Zimmermans. Who wrote that, if you recall?
That was Sherry and I. Just Sherry and I wrote that.
Yeah, I know people still talk about that.
Yeah, that was a fun sketch. I don't think you could probably do that now. Maybe you could. It's possible. It was on the line.
Yeah, it was on the line. I did want to ask because it was really you wrote some really nice comments about Norm Macdonald when he passed away. When he came back to host the show, though, you were not in the show at all. I know that you get both, had a little bit of issues. You both publicly talked about it here and there. Was that on purpose that you wanted to avoid being in that particular show since there was a little tension at the time?
No, not at all. I
Okay.
would have loved to have been in the show. It just the sketches didn't get chosen, and
Okay.
Norm wanted to do other sketches, so that's just how it worked out.
Okay. I did see you at Goodnights, that's why, and I know nobody went
Yeah.
up to Norm at Goodnights to I know, some of the writers were not thrilled with his monologue. Did you witness that? Like, people weren't thrilled with him?
Uh, Actually, I don't remember his
Yeah.
monologue.
Yeah, he kind of said, I haven't gotten any funnier, the show's just gotten really bad." And then the writers were booing him, but, it was a long time ago. Yeah, but it's so much fun watching your sketches. Fred Wolf was the one that came up with because at Roxbury, I remember. I think it was Phil Hartman hosted. You and Will did the Roxbury, and
Yeah,
and then Fred Wolf was the one when Jim Carrey came in that said we should bring Jim Carrey in and make it three. Correct? That was
yeah.
his.
He it was his idea to add a third one. He said, like, why don't you add a third guy since Jim Carrey's on the show, and he could definitely do the head bopping. And that's what gave birth to that sketch. Really, this first time we did it with Phil Hartman, we just did it alone. Phil Hartman wasn't in the sketch; it was just Will and I, and it was exactly like how we did it at the Groundlings. And the second time was, we did it with three guys, and Jim just elevated the sketch so high, because he was Mr. Rubberman, and his head was like over here, onto way over to the other side when he's head bopping. So, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, that's unbelievable longevity with that. I talked to Tishan Shannon. I asked him about the infamous Benihana sketch that
Oh
he
yeah.
wrote in response to Chris Parnell being fired. And he told me when you and Will Ferrell read it at the table that it was complete silence. Is that your recollection as well?
Not I don't recall. I don't
Yeah.
recall that. I mean, I don't remember. I mean, maybe I should recall, but I don't remember the response for the Benihana sketch. I had such a small part in that sketch.
Did you know it was about Parnell? Because Tishan told me some people knew about it, but a lot of people did not know that it was in reference.
God, no, I didn't know. That's wild.
Yeah, it's amazing to kinda look back. I was gonna ask you about, the Ellen when you, played Anne Heche. Is it true that one of them wasn't thrilled with that impression, and did they tell you that, or did you hear about
No,
that?
nobody told me that. I mean, I could assume. Always somebody's, feathers get ruffled, and I assume Anne Heche wasn't happy about it. But I met Anne Heche after that, and she didn't mention it, and she was very nice to me.
Oh, that's good to know, no, one of my I have this friend who still talks about Mr. Peepers, and it's his favorite sketch. He's really into physical comedy. Was it hard doing that sketch knowing Lorne that was not his favorite? He kind of, it's he would call it even though it killed, he would call it hack because he just didn't like animals and he thought it was an easy joke. Were you cognizant that it wasn't Lorne's favorite piece, and was that an issue at all? I mean, obviously, he put it on.
I heard he didn't like the piece, but it wasn't really an animal. It's more of the missing link, So
Yeah.
I mean, he ate apples and he hung on people. It was kind of different than just being an animal,
And it killed. I mean, it did. You can't
and it
argue with
went
the
well.
crowd.
So yeah, you couldn't argue with the crowd, and it became a hit. And I did it many times. And when Tom Hanks hosted, he's the reason why it got on air. So when Tom Hanks wants, Tom Hanks gets.
Did you know Leonard Cohen growing up? I know he was friends with your parents. Did you know him?
Yeah, I knew him as a child. He's friends with my parents. They all studied Buddhism, and he was a Zen student. And they both had the same teacher, which means Oroshi. They call it. That's the name of. That's what means teacher in Japanese. And they all studied together. And yeah, so that's how I knew him as a child. I've known him for a long time until he passed away.
What was that like though? Because you're living in Washington, but then like you're 10, you meet Robin Williams, you meet Frank Sinatra as a teenager. Can you recognize that this is not normal?
Yeah. No, I guess it wasn't normal. I mean, I was brought up, when I was 6 years old. I got to see my dad perform. He was one of the founders of the Groundlings. My dad was, and I got to see him perform at the grounding stage when I was 6 years old. So I had a little bit of that blood in me, and I got to see how my dad used that blood and how he performed. And I had a little bit of a performing bug in me as well, but it wasn't time yet. I wasn't old enough.
What was it like in August 1986 when you drove 6 hours to Spokane to see Stevie Ray Vaughan?
What was it like?
Yeah.
It was a long drive.
Yeah,
It
but Stevie Ray Vaughan, I mean, unbelievable performer.
was his last concert. Yeah, before he took off in the helicopter, and I guess the helicopter crashed. Apparently,
Yeah, I mean, he was
it
unbelievable
was
as a
the
performer.
concert was Joe Cocker and Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
What talent. That's unbelievable.
yeah.
Adrian Brody was asked recently about when he hosted the show SNL in May of 2003, and there's been several cast members that have talked about him, and he improvised. He didn't tell Lauren he was going to put on dreadlocks and introduce the musical
Oh,
guest.
right.
What is your recollection about him doing that? Which every second is timed with a stopwatch. So what is your recollection?
Well, I had no idea he was going to do that. I don't think the rest of the cast did, but he did do it, and I think some people poke fun at him for doing it. I myself, I didn't think anything was too wrong about it, or I didn't get the joke.
It was definitely dangerous to do something like that on air that was Elvis Costello pulling something that Lauren didn't know that wasn't agreed upon. I can't really think
Yeah,
Damon Wayans level. Um,
yeah, yeah. I guess it was. Yeah, I guess it was. But it wasn't like he wore blackface or anything.
no, no.
He wore a dreadlock wig,
Yeah.
and he was doing taking a Jamaican accent.
30 seconds that was not timed into the show. How did that happen in 2001 at the Emmy nominations when they had all the SNL writers and you showed your face for each one and you kind of contorted
Yeah,
your face to look like them and dress like them? How did that come about?
that was the great Paula Pell, who's a wonderful writer, and she still writes for SNL sometimes. But she has her own show. She's acting now as well, and she's a terrific performer and an incredible writer. And she had the idea of if I dressed up as each of the writers, and we ended up winning Emmys that year. So when they showed on the Emmys, and they named and listed all the writers, they showed a picture of me dressed up as each writer, doing my best impression with the wig and the outfit on. So it's pretty funny. It was a little bit inside, but the people that knew the writers got it.
People loved it. I was going to ask you about that sketch with Juliana Margulies when she hosted about the two brothers that can't produce saliva. And it said in the newspaper, Margulies was mentioning that you really told her in between Dress and Live to go for it more or
Yeah.
less, and that she was playing a little bit small in Dress. Can you set up that sketch? Because I don't think it's available for people to
You
watch.
mean the Bird Family?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it not available?
I
That's
don't think
bad.
so. It might be, but I wasn't able to find it. But it was one of those sketches where I couldn't believe.
Yeah.
I mean, it totally killed, and it was just shock value, but in a very funny way, and the
Yeah,
commitment
well, the
level.
joke was that we needed our food chewed by our mother bird, like who was just a parent, and to be spit into our mouth to do the swallowing. So it's pretty it's pretty disgusting. But we are committed, and it's pretty funny. I think Will and Chris Parnell wrote that sketch.
Oh, it did very, very well. So, do you have any recollection when you were 9 years old and you went over to, Fernwood Tonight with your dad, who was a big deal, a big actor? I think it
Yeah.
was Martin Mull and Harry Shearer, but what stands out at 9 years old over at Fernwood?
Oh my God, very little. I mean, I wasn't ever on set. I just stay home, and he would show me the tape that he did it. He had a famous character called Rabbi Abraham Stein, and he did that at the Groundlings. And it was a big hit there. And so he would do it on Fernwood Tonight. And yeah, they had him on that show a few times.
And then you became friends with Fred Willard.
Yeah.
Your dad, Kip King, I know he did a Batman episode with Cesar Romero. Did he ever tell you any stories about filming Batman?
Not really. No, he just showed me the episode. He had clips of all his work back in the 60s. He was a character actor. And he did shows like The Rifleman and, Jeffersons and Different Strokes and Facts of Life and Bosom Buddies.
Small Wonder, we're forgetting Small Wonder,
Oh,
Chris.
I forgot about Small Wonder.
Yeah, I mean, it's Dragnet, Beverly Hillbillies. I mean, it goes
Yeah,
on and on. Um,
right.
did Norm give you a hard time? Jim Brewer told this story about when Pamela Anderson was hosting, they did a Twilight Zone episode. The way Brewer says it is that Norm wasn't committing to Rod Serling in dress rehearsal, and at the live show, you were giving him a hard time. You need to do this, and Norm was kind of messing with you. And then it was like 3, 2, 1, and then he goes into Rod Serling. Was that your recollection? That's what Brewer.
That's not how it went. No,
Okay.
I don't know how it went, but
Yeah.
he wasn't doing Rod Serling. He was doing Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And I thought that wasn't Rod Serling. I said, you should do Rod Serling
Yeah.
because that's the host of Twilight Zone. Clint Eastwood didn't do Twilight Zone, and I think that bothered him. And he said something that was kind of rude to the audience, and but our tiff was like we didn't. It was just for fun, really.
Okay.
It was like Fred Allen and Jack Penny.
Can you talk about that the Groundlings writer who was over at Saturday Night Live who would dress up like Mark Twain for the pitch meeting on Mondays? He would just do these wild pitches.
Who
Wasn't
dressed up as Mark Twain?
it was a gentleman who was friends with a Groundling. I forget it. Was it Stephen Clegg? Is that his name or something Clegg? I'm
Oh, Stephen Craig.
Is that it? The one that he would do these weird pitches and dress up like it's like in character and do things?
I guess so. I fairly remember that. I guess he
Yeah.
was dressing up. Yeah, yeah. He was on. He wrote for SNL for a couple of years.
Yeah, it was I've heard some of the stories, I just didn't know, if you
Yeah,
had any, but I know that that was, a long, time ago. I was gonna ask you, about when you were on Conan the first time. I remember watching this, there was a fire in the studio, and they almost canceled it, and then
right.
instead, it's you and Samuel L. Jackson out by the skating rink. It was
Yeah.
completely last minute. What stands out? What do you remember from that?
Well, I remember that we had the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree behind us. It was freezing outside, and we did the whole show outside. Because we couldn't do it inside because of the fire. So, and I was one of the guests, and I was early on. That was like my first season that I was asked to be a guest, and my first show, my first talk show to promote SNL. So that was pretty fun and exciting for me. My first time on Conan too.
Yeah, it was a great appearance. What was it like going on Letterman 3 times? What was it like your first time going on with Dave?
I remember the stage being cold. I remember being very nervous because Letterman was my hero. I mean, I used to, after school, I would tape his airings, and then the next day, I'd do my homework, and then I'd watch David Letterman, and it was a blast. I really loved Letterman the most. So when I did his show, I was very nervous. He didn't go backstage and meet anybody before the show, like most hosts.
Like Leno.
Yeah, like
or
Leonard does
Conan.
that, or
Yeah.
Conan. But he was he's just very sweet. He's a very kind man. But when you're such a fan, you're still nervous. You can't help it.
Sure. How were you when, Monty Python when John Cleese and Michael Palin came in? Because I knew Monty Python was your almost favorite thing growing up. So they come in with
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey's hosting, and they come in to do, the Dead Parrot, and the sketch, it was I mean, the audience probably had no idea who they were, who Python was,
Yeah,
and it just
unfortunately.
completely died on air. But what was it like being around those guys, and what do you remember about that sketch dying? It was really
I don't think they I just think they didn't know what was happening. I think the crowd was a little confused and they didn't recognize them. I guess they just didn't recognize Monty Python, which was a shame.
yeah.
Because they were all heroes of ours, of our cast, and we knew certainly who they were, and we knew the famous parrot sketch, and so we were excited about it, seeing it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know why it didn't do as well as it could have done. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it was such a classic sketch. I think that maybe people didn't know who they were.
Yeah,
How old were you when you would go to the Groundlings and watch the show? You were too young to watch the show. You'd be in the lighting booth on somebody's lap watching your dad, and it was Edie McClure and Paul Rubens and Phil Hartman. How old were you?
yeah. I was like 6 years old, 6, 7 years old.
What was that like at the time? I mean,
Oh, it's very exciting, to get to see my dad. I was very proud of my dad and get to see him perform and on stage for people. Yeah, I was a big fan of my dad. He was hilarious. He was like the funniest man I ever knew.
yeah, he was very,
And
very proud of you too, and I'm
yeah,
glad I got to see you work and come over to the show. I know that you also were saying that originally when you didn't get SNL, you watched, I think it was the Quentin Tarantino episode, and you watched Tom Arnold host, and you didn't think those episodes were necessarily funny, so you weren't that upset about not getting the show. Is that what you
which
still
show is
recollect?
this?
It was you said to Tom Shales and James Andrew Miller in the oral history that you watched when Quentin Tarantino hosted, the
Oh,
show, and that was when you did not get the show. It was the Will's first season, but you hadn't been cast yet. So you
right.
watched a few episodes and you didn't find the show that funny, so you weren't really that upset you didn't get it. Is that
Well, they were trying to find their laurels, and they're inching into a cast. So I just wasn't like I still had the groundlings,
yeah.
which fed my creative buzz, and it didn't really have a hook yet until they did the cheerleaders, till Will and Sherry did the cheerleaders. Then it felt like they had some magic going on.
Yeah, that was show number 5 or 6, it was something like that. So, when you did Bono, your sophomore year of high school, I read an interview
Yeah,
with Bob McAllister, who was, your English teacher and theater
and he
coach,
did.
and he was talking all about like, so then when you get to meet you 2 and you get them to sign everything for you, do you tell Bono that you impersonated him in high school? What was that like?
Yeah, I did. I did tell him that. I don't think he was. He thought that was cute. Um, you know, um, I did do Bono during a pep assembly, and I think he liked that. But I was like, I'm such a huge Bono fan.
Oh, yeah,
I
it's
think
the
he's such an incredible performer.
Yeah, you put on Instagram, which I love that you'll put on, certain things that you have from the show. I know, when David Bowie was another person, when he was on, you had him sign something, correct?
Yeah, that's true. A cover of a song called "Little Wonder" is what he performed on the show too.
Was there anyone else that you would do that with, a host or music that you would kinda go back that meant something to you?
Well, everybody, I guess. I mean, it'd be nice to have everybody's signature in a book.
No, absolutely. Did you write Mango with Scott Wania? Was that his idea or your idea? And did you write it with him?
Originally, the character was my idea,
Okay.
but then I joined up with Scott and we wrote the scenarios together when we had guest hosts on the show. So it was we both took a whack at the sketch.
Was it one of those things? Because I heard Will Ferrell and Molly talk once, and they said that they didn't wanna be repeating the characters as much as they did, but it seemed to me they felt pressure from Lorne. Did you want to be doing Mango as much as you did, or was that kind of self came from Lorne, did you feel?
No, I liked doing it. I didn't
Okay.
mind it because it worked,
It
and the
did.
audience wanted to see the character. So if Lauren wanted it, that was like fine with me.
Yeah, in the audience, the sketches always killed. What are your memories when Chris Farley came in to host? Obviously, that was a rough week, but what stands out?
Well, he was a very sweet guy, very sweet and self-deprecative, and he was just a really kind-hearted person. And he was just really tremendous, and he gave himself to totally to the read through table and to the show. He may have had a little bit of a cold that week,
Mhm.
and but that's about it. I mean, I didn't know him outside of the show. That was my experience with Chris Farley. He was just a sweet guy, like the sweetest guy.
When you did Corky Romano, did you take that initially to Lorne, or how did, Robert, Simons come about? Did Lorne pass, like, with Sandler? I know that happened, and then he took it to somebody else.
No, it wasn't approached to Lauren. It was strictly from Disney.
Mhm.
Disney approached me, and it was negotiated with my agent. So it wasn't. It had nothing to do with Lauren.
I wasn't sure about that. What is your favorite Peter Falk story? He's one of my favorites from working with him on that.
I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite
That's
story.
okay.
I mean, it was just in general, just working with him was such a joy. I remember watching all the Cassavetes films and his performances. He was such a great actor, and I remember working with him on that movie, and he was so nice. He wanted me to. I did a pilot after that, and he wanted me to audition his wife. So I did. I auditioned his wife.
Wow.
So, but he
Very
was a
cool.
very nice guy, such a sweetheart.
Yeah, I like that when that happens.
Yeah.
What was it like being at the 50th? Was that who were some of your favorite people to reconnect with or meet at the 50th of SNL?
Oh God, that was just too overwhelming to say.
Yeah.
Everybody was there. Just everyone. I mean, I think one memory that popped out was dancing with Paul McCartney and my fiance. That was pretty fun.
Yeah. Did you know your final SNL that was gonna be your final season? Did you make the decision that this is gonna be my last show, or was it that summer that you said, "I've had it, I think I don't
Yeah,
wanna come
I
back"?
decided to go. It just took a lot out of me, and my dad was getting sick, and he needed me back in California because I didn't know how long he was going to last. So that's why it was my last season.
Who were your favorite people to write with at SNL?
Oh, everybody was great. I mean, there really wasn't somebody that wasn't great to work with. Matt Piedmont and Harper Steele and
Yeah. Harper was on the podcast, yeah.
God, so many people. I mean, everybody was a great writer. It was an honor to work with any of the writers because they've been around for years and or off to better things very quickly and or bigger and better things, I should say.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were just great to work with. So it was always fun to work with writers because I usually wrote alone, and I'd rather work with the writers.
Yeah, it's more fun. You did an interview once, and Norm has talked about this, I think, as well, or maybe it was Will Ferrell, about how Norm, as a prank, took your sneakers on an
Yeah,
airplane, and you were barefoot and you couldn't find them, and then you took his famous black jacket, and then Lori Joe called to try to get it back. How long did you hold the jacket hostage before you gave it back to Norm?
not even an hour. but
I was
but
wondering.
I didn't get my shoes back for like a week.
Oh, I didn't know you ever even got them back. So Norm did
Yeah,
finally admit that he took them.
yeah,
Oh, I
he
thought
did.
he threw them in a garbage can. For Norm to actually admit something, I had no idea.
Yeah, that was kind of rough. He took my shoes off a plane, so I didn't have shoes walking off the plane.
Yes, that's very, very Norm. You were good friends with Fred Willard. What are some of your favorite memories from knowing him?
Well, he was closer to my dad than to me. He was very funny. He taught classes in comedy as well, and he was just a really class A guy, very close to my dad, and just very funny. He was always very funny. I wish he was still alive. That would be great.
He was a really nice man. Him and his wife, Mary, very nice people. I met them
Yeah.
a bunch of times. Who wrote the sketch that you guys would do every Christmas? It would be you, Tracy, and Jimmy singing that song and Horatio. Who wrote that? And did you ever think that that would reoccur so many times?
Horatio wrote the song, and Jimmy and Horatio shared a writer's room. They shared a room together, and so they kind of came up with the idea that Jimmy would hold the keyboard as he played, and Horatio would play the guitar, and I would just hold the keyboard because they needed someone to hold it. And Tracy just walked by the office and said, "What are you guys working on?" So he just decided to just dance, just do a simple dance.
I couldn't believe it did okay the first time, but it just seemed every year it would just keep coming back, and it became after like a year or two, it just became an annual tradition. Did you ever foresee that that would happen?
No, I had no idea. It was such a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it became a big hit.
In high school, when you were doing The Crucible and doing Man of La Mancha, did you think you might go in that direction, more serious than comedy?
No, I didn't know if I would be more. I wanted to be in comedy more than serious. Although I could do comedy. I mean, I could do serious. It'd be nice to do that sometime. But my heart was in comedy for sure.
You were 19 when you started at the Groundlings. How long did it take you to make the main stage?
Uh, Probably about 4 years.
It's amazing. I mean, to that
Yeah.
you got it, and then you got it. Was there anyone that you recommended to learn from the Groundlings, either or anybody? I know, for example, I know Bill Hader recommended. I believe it was Pete Davidson. I know Megan Mullally
Oh yeah.
was the one that recommended Bill Hader. Is there anybody that you recommended to learn by chance?
I didn't. No, I
No.
I didn't have. No, I didn't. No, I was. My cast was the same cast I made it on, so they made it right before me.
Yeah. I know. I'm only going to bring him in, our producer John, because he's with the Saturday Night Network, and they've interviewed almost so many people from Saturday Night Live, and some of the fans had a few questions. John, I don't know if you can come in
Oh,
and
okay.
ask Chris a few, but this is our producer John Schneider.
Hi,
John,
Chris.
John.
Yeah, great to properly meet you. Well, there's a lot of lore in the fan community about your time at the show and this injury that occurred. Are you able to talk about how that came together, what really happened, and when that injury occurred during your career?
Yeah, I'd rather not. It's not really an
Okay,
exciting thing to talk about.
no
It's
problem.
kind of a lull, but it was I broke my neck, and I was out of commission for years, and it was kind of sad.
Yeah,
I was unable to work for years,
can't imagine.
yeah, of course,
so
totally
and
understand that. When Tina and Jimmy took over on Update, it seemed like you got a lot more involved with the, coming in front of the desk and doing
right.
some sort of bit there. Is there a reason that happened more in the Tina Jimmy era of Update versus, Colin Quinn or Norm?
No, well, the head writer was Michael Schur, and he just, I don't know. There was the terrible reenactments that I would do in the weekend updates. There's always bad reenactments or something in the news where some accident happened, and I would do a terrible reenactment, whether the Queen tripped or John McEnroe got mad or something like that. So I would interpret that movement and that act, and I would just say thank you, and it was a quick like 30-second thing.
Yeah, it was really great. I also wanted to ask you about your final season at the show. I know Mark mentioned it earlier, but you had this late career moment that I think all the fans really enjoyed, which was the Rialto Grande, where you were playing that Buddy Mills character.
Yeah.
And do you have any memories of that coming together and that being something, later in your career where it's like, oh, I just hit on a new character?
Yeah. Well, it was loosely based on my dad, who's kind of a goofball, and yeah, it was. He was a bad lounge singer or a bad lounge comedian, and Fred Armisen was the drummer. And what was great about that sketch, my favorite part, were the all the females in the show and the cast were the waitresses, and they just walk by the camera and give these sneering looks. Whether it was Tina or Maya or or Amy Poehler, or Rachel, and they just gave these these hilarious looks. They were so funny. That was my favorite part of the sketch. Well, when the girls were waitresses. Um, but there was a lot of people in that sketch. But it was about a lounge singer that told bad jokes, and Fred Armisen was always, he did the dun dun, with the drums, but he was always a little late.
The timing on that was fantastic. I thought you and Fred made such a good pair. And I am always curious to know, you were there sort of at the start of all of these really incredible performers' careers. We had Amy and Seth and Fred and Will Forte all coming in at the end. Did you feel like there was a moment when you were handing the reins off to them, or was there anything as like the elder statesman of the cast that you felt like, okay, I can go now because the show is in really good hands?
No, no, I just, it was in good hands, of course, but I didn't need to feel that. I mean, it was in good hands. It wasn't like well, they didn't want me to leave. I do remember there was pressure on me not leaving. The writers didn't want me to leave, and but my dad was sick, so I was just explaining earlier that he was sick, so he needed my help. So I came back to LA. Um, but yeah, no, there was no. The show was always in good shape since I was there from day one.
Mark, I got one more, which is
Yeah.
that I just wanted to ask you about, there's a very famous sketch that you have a very brief appearance in, which is the She's a Rainbow sketch. That is when Kristen Wiig had her goodbye to the show
Oh,
and Mick Jagger was performing. And all of a sudden, Chris Kattan is there. And if you're like a longtime fan of the show, you're like, oh, this is so cool. Chris Kattan showed up. What were
right.
you doing there that night?
Oh, I was just there. I just came to see the show, and then Will Forte asked me to go up on stage in the end, and they asked me to be in a sketch since I was there. So that's how that happened. I just came to see the show because I heard it was Kristen Wiig's last show.
Yeah, it adds to the lore of that sketch a little
Yeah,
bit that you ended up being in it. So
yeah.
yeah, those are the major questions I had, Mark.
I,
I do have some writing credits, but we can go over those.
I had one. I'll get back to the credits. I wanted to ask, did you and Will go to Lorne about Jack Nicholson doing Roxbury? Was that you and Will that went to him
Um,
to pitch?
I don't know if we did. I don't recall. I don't know if it was Lauren's idea. I mean, he was there to see the show because Helen Hunt was hosting, and they just did
As good as it gets.
as good as it gets, and so he was there as a friend, and we asked if he'd come in and do a little bit, a little Roxbury, you know, bopping of his head for a cameo, and that was pretty cool.
Did he do dress rehearsal? I don't. I can't see Jack doing dress. I can just see him doing it on air. Did he do dress? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I don't recall. I think he did. I think you kind of have to, or you try your best to get the person to do so.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I think he did.
John just has a few more questions about writing, and then we'll let you go. But this has been amazing,
Okay.
John.
Yeah, Chris, I just have, I would love to rapid fire you some sketches that we would love to know if you have any memories of or writing with any particular writer. One is the Terry Gantner family workout. That's from the Marty Short episode in season 22.
Oh yeah, Will Ferrell wrote that sketch, and that was very funny. Where we it was a block of balsa wood that we hit, obviously, so we wouldn't get hurt.
Yeah, that was really good. Then an episode later in the Christmas Off sketch, that was from the Rosie O'Donnell episode. You did a Bill Gates impression. Any memories of that one?
God, I don't remember that. I know I did Bill Gates, but I didn't remember what episode it was.
Yeah, that was really, really funny. I think
Okay.
later on, a couple episodes later, David Allen Greer's episode, there was this big Spice Girls sketch where you and all the guys were dressed, or there was a bunch of you dressed as Spice Girls. Any memories of that one?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, I thought we did that with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
I think you did it a couple times.
Yeah, I guess we did. Yeah, we did that. Girl power.
Yeah. Any memories of who put that one together?
No, I don't. I don't remember who put that together. I think a female writer, I'm going to guess.
Okay. Got that. Then I have there was a job interview sketch. I think that's from season 23, episode 17. So I'm going to say that was in the Steve Buscemi episode. Oh, yeah, that was a pretty,
I love
Mark,
that sketch.
you remember
Oh
that sketch. You talked
yeah,
about it before.
I wrote that sketch. That sketch I wrote.
Instead of UCLA, he's like, "What is yuckla?" Or like, hopefully I pronounced it.
What is UCLA? It's like it's UCLA. Yeah, he was like he just was demented and not very bright, and it was a job interview.
Yeah, it was really, really funny. But you wrote
Yeah,
that. That's great.
I just got influenced by his kind of attitude in his films. Steve Buscemi's such a great, strong character actor.
That one's really an all-timer. There was a sketch called Wrap It Up. I think that was a sketch from the John Goodman episode in
Yeah,
season
I
24.
wrote that. I wrote that. He was a bad Christmas rapper in the rapping section.
Oh, that was fun. That was really good physical.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was Seth Meyers' favorite sketch. That's what he used to tell me.
Oh, yeah, I really like that one. Also, we talked about Sarah Michelle Gellar before, but there was a sketch called Shame Attack. I think it was a game show from when she hosted with the Backstreet Boys.
God, I don't remember that one.
It's a long
Yeah.
time ago.
That
Yeah,
one I
for sure.
don't remember.
I liked when you were doing the luggage with the suitcases and you're the bellboys throwing the suitcases. Did you write that?
That was one of my favorites. Yeah, we wrote that. Will and I and Jim Brewer all wrote that because we were the bellhops, and we just destroyed people's luggage as it was handed to us. The idea came about as we were on the 17th floor where we wrote, and we were just kicking around empty water barrels, and we're just like throwing them around, and thought that could be funny if we just threw things around and acted normally. And so we came up with the idea of being bellhops at a luggage, a lobby of a hotel, of a high class hotel, and just throwing around people's luggage.
Yeah.
In 2000, you did Elian Gonzalez on like a cold open for an NBC special report. Any memories of that one?
I knew it was a cold opening. No, it was neat to get always handed a cold opening. That's always great and exciting. But yeah, that was just in the news, and I played Leon, who floated over from Cuba, and yeah, that was neat to get cast as that character.
I think you did Ricky Martin that same episode on Charlie Rose.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, there was a funny one. There's also Siegfried and Roy's Night of a Thousand Tigers. I think that was from the next episode. That's from the Alan Cumming episode. And
Yeah, you guys remember everything. Jeez Louise.
we have a full vault full of all the details.
Yeah,
But
you
these are some
do.
missing stuff that the fans want to know. Like, how did that stuff come together?
Right, yeah. Yeah, I just could do a Ricky Martin impression. I was very physical, so I did a Ricky Martin impression, and so they shaped a sketch around it. That impression I did.
Yeah, people still talk about it because of music rights. I don't think it's online. Am I right on that or wrong?
Yeah, it's another one that you can't find, unfortunately. I did a lot of sketching with music,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunately you can't find a lot of the sketches.
Chris, do you remember anything about the Christopher Lowell show? That's from the John Goodman episode in 2000.
Just that I used to watch it because it was so funny, and that my beard fell off during the dress rehearsal, and they used that in a blooper reel. The spirit gum kept falling off, and I went, oh.
Did you put that together with anybody?
No, I wrote that. I may have wrote that with Scott Wayneo.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I think I got what I was looking for, Mark.
Chris, I know this was very nerdy SNL. Thank you for making John and I happy, but this was great talking to you.
Well, thank you. You guys had different questions that I haven't heard before, so
Oh,
thank you for
good.
being so bright.
No, I'm glad that we got to do that. And is your podcast going to come back?
Most likely, it might be coming back. It might be coming back in a different form. I might be doing it solo, but I'm not quite sure.
I think people really want that, and you had some great guests, and it was fun. And following your Instagram, you do such a great job posting stuff from your current life and from SNL, and you do a really good job on that.
You.
So, yeah, everybody check out that on Instagram.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Yeah,
I really
that'll come
appreciate you
back.
joining us.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode. On Apple Podcasts, please rate it and leave a review. Be sure to go to LateNighter.com for all your late night TV news. And you can find my podcast at LateNighter.com/podcasts. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Tuesday.